With the background that we have now, we are ready to start diving into the finite element approach for solving the weak form. And then again, we are considering the same weak form which we have been considering and solving so far. So you may recall that in Ritz approach, we defined a set of shape functions or basis functions, and these were defined over the whole domain. So if the domain was from 0 to 1, all of these functions n1, n2, and if we use more n3, all of them were defined over the entire domain, and u of x was defined as d1 plus d1 times n1 plus d2 times n2. Of course, there was one more term n naught, which was considering the essential boundary condition. And the way these d1 and d2 etc. were being viewed was that they were some kind of coefficient which were unknown. Once we determined those, we were able to find the function u of x. Now, finite element approach is in a way similar to Ritz approach. The only difference is that instead of defining functions over the whole domain, we define functions in a piecewise manner. Okay, so basically this domain is divided into several subintervals. Okay, and these divisions create smaller subdomains, and these subdomains are what are called the elements. Okay, and these have to be of finite length. They cannot be of zero length or infinite length, and hence, the finite element approach is what this is called. Now, imagine that the domain 0 to 1 is subdivided by several points such as A, B, C, D, and E into 4 subdomains or 4 elements. And within each of these, we are defining, let's say, linear functions to interpolate the actual function u of x. Okay, and this interpolation is being done using, let's say, the quantities here. So the value of u at xa is dA. The value of u at point B is dB. Okay, value at point C is dC, at point D is dd, and point E is dE. So in a way, these are the coefficients, but now they also play the role of quantities at these points, and these points we will later call nodes. So these are basically nodal quantities, and the interpolation of u of x across the domain is being done in a similar way, where we say it is dA times NA plus dB times NC, so on and so forth. And we will formalize this very shortly. But the idea is that when we are defining the functions in the whole domain, that is what this Ritz approach is. And when we subdivide the domain into several intervals or elements, and do the interpolation piecewise, that is what is called the finite element approach. Okay. So before we go into the functions, let us have a look at the discretization of the domain. Okay. And this is often called mesh generation or meshing of the domain. So there are few elementary geometrical concepts which are useful in knowing about this discretization. So basically, a zero-dimensional object is called a point. Okay, and zero dimensions mean it will not have any length, width, or depth. And these points are what are called or what are used to define nodes. So in the domain here, the points A, B, C, D, and E, these are zero dimensional. That is, they do not occupy any space, and these are called the nodes. Okay. A line which is a one-dimensional geometrical object, so you can consider line segment AB or BC or CD or DE. Okay. So these are in a one-dimensional case, they will be the element directly. Okay. In a 2D or 3D case, they may represent a boundary. And we will come to 2D and 3D later. As of now, we will focus mostly on 1D. Okay, so for our purpose, as of now, these two are the geometrical objects of concern. One is a point which defines a node, and one is a line which defines an element. And later on, we will see that there are two-dimensional objects which are called surfaces, which can form an element in two-dimensional space, or it can form a boundary in three-dimensional space. And then finally, there are three-dimensional objects which are volumes, and they will form the elements in three-dimensional space. So we are focusing on 1D and linear elements first, which means all of these NA, NB, NC, ND and NE we will consider to be linear functions within respective subdomains or elements. Let us directly start to work by considering the same example that we have solved earlier using the Ritz method, where A, L and E are 1 unit each, and there is a tip load of 10 newtons being applied as earlier, and the left end is fixed. And say we want to use two elements to solve this using piecewise linear functions. And you should notice that use of two elements is different than using two functions that were used for the Ritz method. There, the domain was one, or the element was only one, which spanned the entire domain, and we used two functions. Here we are using two elements. So now this domain between 0 to 1 is being subdivided into two. These green numbers indicate the element number, and these circled numbers 1, 2 and 3, they are denoting the node numbers. Okay, so these are node numbers. So there are three nodes at 0, half and 1, and there are two elements. One is between node 1 and 2, and second is between node 2 and 3. And these green numbers are the element numbers. And this particular representation of the domain is what is called a mesh. Now let us consider three unknown quantities, D1, D2 and D3. Okay, and using these three unknown quantities, let us define u of x in a piecewise way, piecewise linear manner. So in the element 1, u of x will be d1 plus d2 minus d1 divided by x2 minus x1 times x minus x1, and for the element 2 it will be this. Okay, now these forms can be rewritten in a vector notation. So once you simplify this and this, u1 of x, which is the functional form of the displacement within the first element, that is this vector times this vector, and for the second element it is this vector times this vector. Okay. So we have u's defined like this, and then we can take derivatives, and notice that only the left vectors have x dependence, so we can calculate the derivatives here. So u1 comma x and u2 comma x, and here again recall that 1 and 2 are representing the element numbers. Right, so this u1 is the variation of u of x in element 1, and within this we can consider that this is the element displacement vector in a way. So this element has two nodes at 1 and 2, so the element displacement vector will be d1 d2, and let's say these two functions are the shape functions which are associated with respective nodes. So this we are calling as n1, this we are calling as n2. Okay, and n1 and n2 are of this form, and there are certain properties which they satisfy. So if you calculate what is the value of n1 at x1, which is here, which is n1 at x equal to 0, that comes out to 1, and n1 at x2, which is here, comes out to 0. Similarly, n2 at x1 comes out 0, and n2 at x2 comes out to be 1. Okay, so this is a very important property of the shape functions which are used in the finite element method, and this is called the Kronecker delta property, which basically says that if you take shape function of a particular node and evaluate it at the coordinate of any other node, that will be 0. And if you take the shape function of a particular node and evaluate at that node itself, that will give a value 1. So that is this delta ij. When I is equal to j, then the value is 1. If I is not equal to j, value is 0. Another interesting property is that if you add these two, n1 plus n2, at any x coordinate, you will get 1. Okay, so n1 is 1 minus 2x, n2 is 2x. If you add them, you get 1. And this is also an interesting property, a very important property, which is called the partition of unity. Partition of unity. So basically, within an element, these functions are dividing 1, or they are partitioning 1. Okay, and this d1 and d2 are nodal displacements, which now is the can be seen as the consequence of the above two properties. So u at x1 is n1 x1 d1 plus n2 x1 d2. Now this is 0, this is 1 because of the Kronecker delta property. So u at x1 is d1 and u at x2 comes out to d2. So basically, in the Ritz method, d1 and d2 were just coefficients of an expansion, whereas in the finite element method, d1 and d2 have a sense of being the nodal quantities of the field.